let's have a look at some other shit going on. Well, first of all, happy St George's Day for yesterday. I was at the Carlton Club yesterday doing my annual St George's Day speech. I mean, it was perfect, wasn't it? And now to do the St George's Day speech about a bloke who's never been here, St George. Oh, everyone says, oh, he's never even been to fucking England. Yeah. Well, why get me to do a speech about the English when I'm half Scottish, half Irish and half Welsh? Oh, that's 1.5, isn't it? Grandad was Welsh. All right, okay, a bit of Welsh thrown in for good measure, but no English in me at all. So I was in the taxi on the way to Waterloo Station, and I said to the drivers, they always talk to me like, oh, Jim, they're never looking where they're going, they must have necks like this. And he said, well, you've been doing your St George's Day lunch? I said, yeah. He said, I noticed there's no flags anywhere. No, the mayor's banned them, and we're told, and this has been last year as well, we've been told that if we put a St George's flag or a Union Jack on our cabs, we'll lose our licence. That's by the mayor. Well done, Sadiq Khan. Well done, Keir Starmer. Any mention of St George's Day? Well, good old Sadiq, that little person who's running our capital, started his message pretty well, talking about fish and chips, Sunday roast, Shakespeare. It was Shakespeare's birthday yesterday, wasn't it? St George's Day. Shakespeare, we fucking crap Shakespeare. Couldn't fucking write a letter. Anyway, Jane Austen, she invented the car, didn't she, the Austin 7. The Beatles, their birthday was yesterday. No. This is what he's talking about, the little mayor who thinks, oh, I know all about England. Jane Austen, the Beatles, Wimbledon, the Bay City Rollers. But he couldn't leave it there, could he? No.
Jim Davidson just made an unbelievable statement about Sadiq Khan and brutally slammed Keir Starmer live on TV. The backlash was immediate, the outrage deafening. Comedian Jim Davidson, long known for pushing the boundaries of political correctness, just dropped a verbal bombshell, and the internet is on fire. It all started when Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, put out a seemingly harmless statement encouraging people to hug their brown, black and ethnic minority neighbours. A message of unity, maybe, but not to Davidson, not this time.
That little shit, Mayor Sadiq Khan, puts out a statement saying that we should all hug our brown, black and ethnic minority neighbours. What a race-baiting little shit. Why can't we just hug our neighbours? Love thy neighbour. Or is that too Christian? No, he doesn't want real community cohesion. No, he wants to cause division. Eh? Where are his statements calling for people to hug their Jewish neighbours for the past 7 months, when Jews kept telling him that pro-Palestinian marches he sanctioned made them feel terrified in their own country? He was pretty fucking silent then, wasn't he? Do you know what? It's gone mad. Our leaders have done nothing but make the situation worse. Barney Rubble, right? Keir, two-tier Keir. He must surely recall Parliament in a minute. He's come back from his holidays early, hasn't he? But they've got to come back and have a proper debate about the tensions in the country. And not just arrest people. There's tensions going on. There's poor Muslim, Pakistani, Bangladeshi people frightened to death of the so-called right-wing.
Davidson didn't whisper. He roared at the mayor, at the lies, at the censorship, at what a London, his London, has become. This isn't just about one comedian. This is about the soul of a city, the voice of a nation, and a question echoing through Britain. Whose city is this? Jim Davidson didn't plan to go viral. He wasn't reading from a script. He didn't have a PR team cleaning up his words. He just spoke raw, angry and completely uncensored. And in that brutal honesty, he said what millions have been thinking, but too afraid to say.
But anyway, let's talk about the other little shit that's, not that there is a previous. Sadiq Khan. Oh, I can't bear him. Have you ever seen such an arrogant little Roland Rat looking shitbag? No offence. He has told people who don't like Donald Trump to use their right to free speech and protest. So what he's trying to do, he's trying to whip up crowds of people that don't want Donald Trump to come to London, his London. How come it's your fucking London? I'm from London and I want Donald Trump to come. So they're saying when he travels to the UK for his historic second state visit, apparently the mayor, well now he's all for free speech again, isn't he? Yeah, coming out you go. You can have free speech. You can protest against our great, powerful ally that's in danger of fucking dropping us like a, you know, like a hot cross bun. So the mayor believes in free speech now. Funny, isn't it? He wants so much into it when it's for causes he's not too keen on anyway. Anyway, the awful little shit has he's already told Trump's office to prepare for protest when he arrives here. And I reckon, I don't think he likes Trump. No, I don't. I think that is it. It's purely it. He doesn't like what Trump stands for.
This isn't just about one comedian. This is about the soul of a city, the voice of a nation, and a question echoing through Britain. Whose city is this? Jim Davidson didn't plan to go viral. He wasn't reading from a script. He didn't have a PR team cleaning up his words. He just spoke raw, angry, and completely uncensored. And in that brutal honesty, he said what millions had been thinking, but too afraid to say. This ain't your city, Khan. 7 words. That's all it took. 7 words that cut through the fake smiles and staged diversity campaigns. 7 words that shattered the polished illusion of modern London. And suddenly the mask slipped. Because London doesn't feel like London anymore. Not to the working class Brit who's been priced out. Not to the family scared to walk the streets at night. Not to the pensioner who remembers a city that once felt like home. It's a city of knives now, of acid attacks and postcode wars, of lawlessness in broad daylight, of statues being torn down, history erased overnight. And Davidson in that fiery video said it out loud. This ain't about race, this ain't about hate, this is about truth. He spoke about crime, fear and division. He slammed the elites living in gated comfort while the rest of us are told to tolerate the collapse. He spoke about how Sadiq has let London rot while pretending everything's fine. But the real bombshell, Davidson, dared to say what the media... He called out the censorship, the intimidation, the fear of being labelled for simply asking questions. He talked about the everyday Briton who's been silenced, not by law, but by shame, by a system that protects the powerful and punishes the honest. And the response was unprecedented. The video exploded across every platform. Millions watched, millions shared, because finally someone said it. But not everyone was clapping. The elites panicked, the press scrambled to smear him, the usual phrases flew in, racist, bigot, dangerous. But the people weren't buying it this time because deep down, they knew this wasn't about Jim. This is about them, their homes, their streets, their future. And it all started with one line, one rant, one voice that refused to be silenced. Now, the question isn't whether Davidson went too far. The question is, why has no one else dared to speak before him? You walk down the street and it hits you. London doesn't feel like London anymore. Not the London people grew up in. Not the London their parents remember. This is a new city now, and not in a good way. Boarded up shops, stabbings in broad daylight, beggars lying next to multi-million-pound flats, and a mayor who insists everything's vibrant and inclusive. But who exactly is it inclusive for? Jim Davidson asked the question, and the silence from Sadiq Khan was deafening. No press conference, no statement, no defence. Because how do you defend the indefensible? London's collapse didn't happen overnight. It was slow, creeping, one excuse at a time, one crime brushed under the rug, one community concern after another. London's collapse didn't happen overnight. It was slow, creeping, one excuse at a time, one crime brushed under the rug, one community concern after another. And as Davidson said in that viral rant, London ain't safe, London ain't fair, and London ain't British anymore. Strong words, but not wrong. Knife crime is out of control. Young kids are dying. Children. And where's Khan? Busy changing street names, busy chasing headlines about climate pledges and pronouns, busy doing everything except fixing the chaos. The police demoralised the justice system. Weak criminals were emboldened because under Khan, actions have no consequences. You loot, you walk, you stab, you're misunderstood, you protest for the wrong cause, you're arrested. Davidson said it plainly. They care more about your tweets than your safety. And that hit a nerve, because the people of London, the working class, the forgotten, the ones who built this city, they're not stupid. They see what's happening. They feel it every time they avoid the tube at night, every time they cross the street because a gang's hanging around, every time they hear sirens and wonder if it's another kid lying in a pool of blood. But the worst part is they've been told to shut up, told to stop spreading fear, told to stop dividing communities, told that if they don't like it, they're the problem. That's the lie. That's the gaslighting. And that's what Davidson blew up with his rant. He exposed the rot, the decay, the fact that London's heart is bleeding, and those in power are too afraid or too arrogant to admit it. Because for people like Khan, the truth is inconvenient. But the real bombshell, Davidson wasn't just calling out Khan, he turned his rage toward the whole system, blasting Keir Starmer, the Labour Party and the political elite for, in his words, doing nothing but making the situation worse. He mocked Starmer as Barney Rubble, a clueless bystander with no grip on the rising tensions sweeping across the country. Them? Just arrest people and pretend it's solved, he spat. They got no clue what's really going on. Davidson's takedown struck a chord because, like it or not, people are angry. Angry about rising crime, angry about political correctness, angry about being ignored, and Davidson's brutal honesty. That's what turned a regular outburst into a national headline. Divided reaction, supporters and critics. Blash supporters rallied around him instantly. They called him brave, a voice for the voiceless, one of the few public figures willing to challenge what they see as a broken, woke system that prioritizes ideology over common sense. But critics? They came out swinging. Advocacy groups slammed his words as inflammatory, accusing him of stoking racial tension in a country already dangerously divided. The mayor's office pointed out that Sadiq Khan has received numerous death threats over the years and insisted that public figures have a responsibility not to stir up hate. But Davidson's supporters hit back, arguing that truth doesn't always come gift-wrapped. Sometimes it comes raw, loud and unapologetic, and that's exactly what Davidson gave them. But what shocked people even more was what came next. Davidson doubled down. In a jaw-dropping follow-up rant, he painted a bleak picture of a nation unravelling. The fury in his voice wasn't just for show. It was real, raw, unfiltered. And then came the most controversial part yet. The comedian laid into immigration, connecting it directly to the rise in crime, terrorism and cultural fragmentation.
You are mayor of the capital city where the most recent terrorist attack has taken place. How many of those 400 have come back to London?
The estimate is just over half. So when you
where
look
are
at,
they?
when you look at when you look at the
no, but seriously,
How
where are
we
they?
letting people back in to the UK who haven't just been trained, they've actually fought potentially against our troops? How are we letting them back in without knowing exactly where they are and what they're up to? Because out of all the thousands of people that we're concerned about, surely those who've actually gone to fight are the biggest risk.
Well, that's one of the reasons why it doesn't make sense for the government to be cutting resources from those.
Where are they? You're the mayor of this capital
with respect,
city.
hold
Where
on a
are
second.
they?
I can't follow 400 people. What I can do is make sure
Why
with the
can't you?
policies, because what we can do though is make sure we've got the resources for the police and the experts
Well,
to
why
follow
can't
these
you
people.
instruct the police? Why can't you call Cressida Dick right now
Well,
and say every one of those people who's come back from a war zone, who's in London, I want them followed?
Let me tell you why. Because the Met Police budget, roughly speaking, 15% to 20% is funded by me, the mayor. The rest comes from central government. If the Met Police budget is being shrunk and reduced, they've got to prioritise and use their resources in a sensible, savvy way.
What could be a bigger priority than people coming back from a Syrian battlefield with intent to harm British citizens? Why is it not the #1 priority? Why are these people just allowed to come back in the first place, and then the London mayor doesn't appear to have a clue where any of them are? I mean, no disrespect to you, but where are they?
Well, that's one of the questions that obviously the police and security services are
Yeah, but you're
looking
the
into.
mayor.
But this chap here...
Sadiq, you're the mayor of London.
Sure, but can I say, look, the 3 men responsible for the attack on Saturday night hadn't come from overseas. They were, for all intents and purposes, integrated into our way of life.
But Jim Davidson isn't a politician. He's a man with a platform, and he's not afraid to use it. The reaction was split down the middle. Some accused him of racism and Islamophobia.
I think this is straightforward. It's Islamophobia, and the Prime Minister should call it out for what it is. The reason he won't is because he's so weak. They're divided, they're chaotic, and if they're re-elected, we're going to have 5 more years of this. It is only Labour now that can unite the country, bring people together, turn a page on this, and actually usher in the sort of society, the sort of future that people desperately want.
And here's the real threat. He didn't use fancy language. He didn't go through the BBC. He didn't ask for permission. He just spoke. And that's why they panicked. Because when someone bypasses the gatekeepers, when a message spreads without being filtered, edited or softened, the elite loses control. That's the war Davidson just started. Not with violence, not with threats, but with truth. And they know it because this wasn't just a comedian popping off. This was a public figure with decades of stage time, decades of experience, and decades of watching the country change. Finally saying what millions feel deep down. We've been betrayed, not just by politicians, but by institutions, by the media, by those who promised to protect us and then turned their backs.
The choice here is a choice of failure, more of the same old failure or a fresh start with me. This is about how we move London forward. Cab driver telling me that crime is out of control in London. The stats telling me that crime is out of control in London. Let's look at it like this. How can the mayor look the black community in the face? How can he look women in the face and say he's proud of his record when the streets are not safe for either of those two groups? We've had an 86% rise in knife crime. That's why you hear me talking about stop and search. That's why you hear me talk about scan and search. We need to make the streets of London safe. It is not an option, it is a necessity. And I will take that leadership role.
The backlash was immediate. Not from the people, but from the machine. Fact checkers scrambled to dismiss him. Blue ticks on Twitter labelled him far-right. Activists called for deplatforming. One journalist even said he should be investigated for hate speech. Hate speech. Since when is it hate to demand safety? Since when is it extremist to want your city back? Since when is it dangerous to say what the public is screaming inside their heads every single day? If you enjoyed this political firestorm, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating political content.